5 o'clock, so.
One second.
Yep,
Okay, good.
all set? Well, so we have 4 board members here, so we have a quorum. We'll start off with the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Gary, do we have any questions that have come in from the public?
I have not received any.
Okay, so we'll skip having to read through this and go right to Article 1 to consider the year 2022 Town of Madawaska budget. We do have Kevin here with us at the moment, and I think we went right to his department, which is 500, I believe. If there's any questions that you want to ask of Kevin, if there's anything there, that's why he's here this evening.
I met with Kevin this morning, and he was asking about it, and I thought it might be a good idea for him to come in because we do have that 16th Ave culvert.
Okay.
But he has sort of a best case scenario price of what it might cost to repair that, and, you know, I think it's a number significant enough that we might want to consider some budgetary action on that, so, with that.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, as we talked at the last meeting, that, you know, what we just did a couple of weeks ago was just a patch to get us through until we can decide. And I just, you know, got a quote on that, and we're at about the $100,000 mark. And that's to replace 160 feet of 60-inch pipe.
160 feet.
Yeah, and the reason why it's expensive is because we have the sewer line that runs on top of it. We got a manhole on each side, and the water district also has a water line that runs over the pipe. So there's a lot of clutter.
So I have a phone call in with regional biologist, Frank Frost, to get him to come up here to talk about, because when we submit the permit to do the work to DEP, they're gonna basically reach out to IFNW to find out if there's any wildlife fisheries concerns there. And fisheries would probably come in and take a look at the culvert in the brook to see whether or not it's a brook that qualifies as one where trout can swim up from the river for fish passage.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it will qualify because of the, you know, the climb from the river all the way up to there is just, it's crazy. So I'm hoping that they say no. It would, if we had to do fish passage there, it would dramatically increase the cost of that project. But as soon as I'm able to hear from him, I want him to come up and meet. He can give me an indication whether or not that's something they would be requiring there. But I guess it's, you know, we have already a number for discussion. And I don't know if we necessarily put that in his budget or more in the capital reserves budget, if we were to be so inclined to add some monies there to do that project. I do think it needs to get done this year. We have been trying to hold it, maintain it, but it's one of the first plastic type culverts that were installed. And you just look at the inside of it, it looks like the plastic itself is, the compound is failing, and it's splintering and it's failing in the way that it's crushing it. So it could be a much worse problem and more costly problem if we lose the road. Should we not do that? So I think we've pushed it off as far as we possibly can. And we probably should be looking to do that this year.
And also to keep in mind, that's not the only culvert that we have that we've got quite a few others not as expensive. I've got one more that we patched about 3 years ago, that one we should get by, but we've got a couple that before we hot top next year in town. I've got one on Gerard Street that it's, the underneath is all rotted out, it's buckling. And I've got another one on the on Grandview where it crosses from Summer. That one's a small plastic one. Guyo Road, the bridge over there, we've been getting a letter from the state for the past 10+ years saying that it needs attention. The one at Drop Store, we need to do some work at the head of it and also at the other end. So, the thing is like I was saying before, we're at the point that where we're seeing the end of the lifespan of everything, because everything's been in there for 20, 30, 40 years, and we're seeing that with our sewer lines, that everything is starting to fail because we've patched and we've tried to maintain things as long as we can, and unfortunately, it's all hitting at the same time. A lot of those other culverts, like I said, we can do that in-house. You know, I might have to rent a shovel to help us out, it's too deep, but the rest of that we can do in-house. But this one, with everything going on with the hot top and the bridge and that, and especially with the sewer line and the water lines, I do not want to tackle that. That's beyond, that's beyond us.
So the roads that are gonna get tarred this year now, are you gonna consider doing the culverts on those roads before they do?
We've already done them, like Lakeshore
So you were just
Drive,
talking about Gino Road there.
Guyo Road is.
that's a bridge, that's at the beginning, and what they're asking for is that, at the head where the, how do I say that? Where they put riprap to hold the bank, they use like old rocks and cement, and the only thing we have to do is go in there with a shovel and add some more to place back the bank, and then on the upper end, probably add a couple of slabs of cement to redirect the water. I'm not talking like a complete replacement there, maybe like a rehab, that would buy us
Okay.
quite a bit of time, because that's a thick culvert, and, I mean, I don't think that's gonna go anywhere, but the state has an inspector that goes around, they send us a photo, literature every year on what they find and what they recommend, and, but it's just, they're just showing us how to maintain it, so it doesn't get to the point that we have failure,
Do you know how old the one on 16th Ave is, the one that's failing?
That one was installed, I'm saying, between 1990 and 1992. Yeah, because I had found some paperwork on that, and they had done that section, it was between 90 and 92, and that was the first plastic that came out, and it doesn't look like plastic, it looks almost more like fiber. And even the guy from E.J. Prescott last week, the salesman, came up and looked at that. He says, I've never seen that in my career of selling culverts and with that. My guess is that there's way too much dirt on there for the type of culvert, because there's places there's over 15 feet of dirt, and that's way too much dirt on top of a plastic culvert. So over the years, it's,
So the new culverts, just to close this up here, the new culverts, what kind of a lifespan do you expect on those?
this one here is gonna be a 14 gauge, it's gonna be a galvanized, like a metal galvanized culvert. And if I have to guess on that, I would say 30 to 40 years. Yeah,
Pretty much the same thought.
yes.
Okay.
The only way to do it completely would probably be to do a box culvert or a cement culvert, but I mean, we're talking triple the price, and if not more, maybe quite a bit more. So I'm trying to be economical, but also get, a good lifespan out of that.
So I guess now the question comes, do we wanna look at funding this particular project roughly $100,000, whether we look to his account directly, or that we go to put it into the capital reserve? Is there any thought there? Does it matter? Go ahead, Jason.
I guess I think it's kind of it is kind of a one-time thing, but at the same time, we wanna make sure that we future-proof for other culverts as well, so. I don't know if it's a combination of capital and a line item in his budget that actually, thinks forward towards other culverts that are gonna come in the years.
It's a good point.
The only reason why we'd like to put these bigger ticket items in the capital is that sometimes the projects fall in that beginning of fiscal year, and,
Right.
it allows the department to be, or this board to draw on those funds, no matter which fiscal year it falls in.
That's why I'm thinking of a combination where you put the funds in the capital,
Mm.
but this isn't the only culvert, so we'll need something in his budget to kind of refill that capital once that project gets completed, you know what I mean? So kind of a combination of not just put the money in a capital fund, but put something in his budget to future fund that.
You have how many that you normally look after? Culverts? How many do you actually, how many do we have that you're looking after?
Geez, I can't even count. We've
No,
got
no
driveway
kidding.
culverts, cross culverts, brook streams, oh man. If I have to guess, I don't even wanna guess, but we've got a lot. And we're pretty much like Lake Shore Drive, we did almost all of them on that road.
Yep.
And, Guyon Road, we did quite a bit also, you know what I mean? That Dufour Road, we've changed almost all of them. The ones that needed to be replaced.
Yep.
And quite a bit of the other roads, and I mean, there's only so much we can do per year because the prices are going through the ceiling. Every year it's going up 10, 20, 30%. So we're trying to, like every year, we'll take a section, if we know we're gonna hot top in the next few years, we do a drive and then we check the culverts, and if they need to be repaired or replaced, we do that and let it settle a year, then a year or two, then we go back and hot top. But there's so many, I mean, and like I said, we're at that cycle that I've never seen culverts fail like we've had in the past couple of years, but they're all rotting out and they're all at the end of their lifespan.
So putting this project aside, what do you think you would need to put away each year to try to get close to maintaining the next ones that are gonna fail?
It's hard to say because you've got some that could cost you 5, 10,000, and you've got some that can cost you 100, 200,000.
So is this something that's gonna be easier to revisit each year and or rather than putting a
Yes.
set amount aside?
Because I have a road reserve, I mean, if something would happen, we'd have an emergency and we have a washout.
Okay.
I've got a cushion there, but I hate to keep picking at that all the time because
Right.
I wanna keep that for, emergency purpose. But we know, like, I've gotten 3 or 4 that I need to do, and I think that with about $25,000, we could do pretty much a tackle. And then once we get rid of the bigger ones, then it's not as expensive. When you take a 15 or 18 or 24-inch culvert, you're talking maybe $1,000 to $2,000 to replace, but when you get into the 48 and 60, just the pipe alone is 15, 20 grand.
Yeah.
And this project really, I mean, you've been addressing this or have known for a few years now that it needed to get done.
This has been going on for I'd say 4 to 5 years. I've replaced the upper part towards Mr. St. Gerard's house 2 times, it collapsed. And we've slip lined it, and it's been holding good. And the last time we just went through, it's the bottom section. We took out a 20-foot piece, but there's still another section that's halfway collapsed. And the thing is that if I pop that out, we're in the driveway to KC, and I don't wanna they've allowed me to do what I had to do, but I mean, I don't wanna start taking away parking lots and stuff like that. So,
Our reserve account balances as of March 17. We've drawn Kevin's, which I think was it
9,000 something.
$9,000 out of that.
yes,
the other day.
200, yeah.
So the balance as of March 3 was, March 17 was just about $100,000, so it's about $91,000 in his reserve right now, road project reserve. And we're slated to put in, if it passes that town meeting, 264,500, but a lot of that is earmarked to little paving, stuff like that. And I know that we have the paving project, but I know that we wanted to keep that road reserve in there this year. So anyway,
So really, we are looking for roughly $100,000 in this. Okay.
Yeah, I think we need to fund that $100,000 project, but I think we need to future-proof ourselves and maybe increase that road reserve a little bit, just to help cover some of those costs if there are emergencies that, he has to dig into that.
Well, then I would entertain a motion to look at $100,000 to be put into the capital reserve account for Kevin to use.
want to increase that from 264,500 to,
No,
no?
Aren't we just,
yeah.
we're just playing with this budget through the evening, we're not voting on it yet, right?
Well, I think the 100,000, we want to create a motion to do that now, so that he can replace that before the budget passes, right?
No, the thing is that I can't do nothing until we talk with the state, because they're gonna tell us when we can replace that.
So you think that 100,000 can wait till after budget passes, after town meeting and everything?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
why, I just wanna
Well,
get
yeah,
the
but I
ball
mean,
rolling,
if
because
that's the case, then that means that we're only gonna address this the following year.
Well, no, we'll do it in this year's budget, which is just gonna get voted at
Put it in
town
the
meeting,
reserve account.
right?
Yeah,
what
like, even if we vote to give it to him now, like, that means he's, okay, yeah, you can empty your road project reserve right now and do it, but he's not ready to do it, so.
Because we have to talk to the state to see when they'll allow us to, you know, because there's probably a certain time of year with the fish and all that in there, and I'll have to schedule that in with the contractors to see when they can show up.
Cause that's what you were asking, right? Just to put this as a line, like, add this into this budget conversation and, okay.
You
Okay.
we don't need an action on it
Okay,
tonight.
I get it.
So, yeah, I would add it in so that we can look at those numbers next time.
On that, we have to do it, I understand that, as we're going through this tonight, I'm gonna say this. Last year we cut quite a bit, we were able to do a small decrease, we were able, a little bit of money rolled back into the general fund, and that's looking a lot better. We were able to put a little money here and there. Right here, we've cut again, okay? We've eliminated positions and made part-time positions, and we've done what we can. We have, less revenue, so the net is 100,000. And I'm only saying this to you, I'm not saying I don't wanna do this,
Yeah.
but as we look at the rest of the budget, we're gonna add 100 here. And if you wanna add to road reserve as well, now you're starting to go into the negative. You have to consider overlay, and then, I don't know what the valuation is gonna be, obviously, but if you don't wanna raise taxes, we have to make sure we're looking at the rest of this budget with an open mind to say,
Yeah.
like, if you take this 100, then you have a flat budget, so then going forward, we really have to stay very tight and not go crazy with a lot else.
Got it. Okay.
So that, was that it though, 100, or were we adding something together, you said?
I mean, I just want to entertain that. I don't know if you guys think that we should just increase that by a little bit. I'm not saying a lot, but just enough that it can cover a little bit of expenses.
I think that if they do pass what we have in our road reserve, I don't think that we would have to act on that like right now. But it's just something to keep in mind that
Yeah.
in the near future that, we might be revisiting another area. And it's, we're trying to do this is, how do I say that, spread things out so it's not a big push at once, that, you know what I mean? But just keep in mind that
Well, I mean, to go with what Lori says, maybe we just keep that number in our head, leave it as it is now. And once we get the whole budget in our, get the whole picture at the end of these meetings, we can say, okay, well, we can afford to put a couple thousand extra into that account this year.
Because other than this project here, Kevin, it sounds like most of these culverts, it's not that expensive to deal with it. It's more labor and machinery and just,
on average, you're probably talking like, let's say a 48-inch culvert, you're probably talking 5,000 to 10,000 to do one that crosses a road with the pipe and the material and that. But you don't have those every day. Average size is 15, 18, 24 inch. So it cuts the cost down to a couple thousand. I can absorb that in my budget. But the thing is like, like I said, we've been neglecting and putting things off, and it's been at piling and piling. And it's not only my department, I see it happening, I came here tonight asking for that, but I know Jim is in dire need of stuff for the fire department, and, the other departments are also in need. And we're doing what we can to try to just piece this together, to hold it together, but at one point, you can't Band-Aid a Band-Aid on top of a Band-Aid. At one point, you're gonna have to pull it off, and so, it's, that's where we're at.
okay. Yep, sorry.
When you were here last, I kind of agree with Jason in adding something in your budget here, because when you were here last, we talked about the cost of building materials and how that had gone up. and you were kind of underestimating what you were gonna need, and I asked you if you could maybe kind of look at that and tell us what the real number would be, if you could. Do you have that in your,
I looked at that a little bit after we spoke, and across the whole budget, just to, how do I say that, touch a little bit on everything. I say that we'd have to up our budget in like construction materials and, you know, our road account and our sidewalks and whatever. I'd say we'd have to up that at least $40,000 to $50,000 a year. Cause I got a wall that collapsed on 13th Avenue, and I started looking at that. That's gonna be a $10,000 to $15,000 scrape by the time we put the blocks on there. It just, the wall rotted away, the bricks disintegrated this winter, and our machine fell off the side. You know what I
on
mean?
Acadia there? Right?
Yeah. So I looked at that today, and so it's all a bunch of little things. I mean, it's very, very expensive today. And if you don't have like a maintenance plan or try to stay on top of it, this is where we're at. We neglected our roads for 8 years, and look where we're at today. It's beyond, and to try to bring that back up to snuff in 1 year like that, I mean, it's very tough. Because we have a lot of miles of road compared to our neighboring towns, and it's very expensive.
So just a quick question, and it's just for information purposes, but the money we're borrowing to do the roads,
Yeah.
some of that, is that gonna be used to fix the roads before we tar it, or is that money just strictly for
We've
asphalt?
already done that. That's
Okay.
what my road reserve for. We had like a lakeshore project that they went out and they did that. Last year, we did as many culverts as we could in-house
Okay,
and prepared. We ditched, we added rocks where we needed to. I got a couple spots left before the paver comes, but we'll have plenty of time.
okay. So if some surprise comes up during this whole paving process, will you have some funds available from that?
I'll have some in my road reserve. That's why I try to keep that as a last minute.
Yeah.
And then also, we're gonna have a little bit left over to put shoulder material and stuff like that when we're done hot topping out of that project.
Perfect.
Sorry, Doug, can I?
Nope, go ahead.
I'm sorry, but since you're here,
Yeah, that's fine.
you're talking, like you said, some sidewalks or whatever. Like the sidewalk on, let's say going up 13.
Yeah.
Is that, part of the sidewalk projects, or is that part of the paving? You're not gonna hit?
Going up 13th?
Yeah, well, okay, so there was a gentleman coming down 13 with an electric wheelchair on that sidewalk, and I almost like wanted to go get him, and they're bad. So I guess my question is, like, we always put money for sidewalk match, and then you have, who fixes those? Like, how does that, where does that fall in the process, and would it be cheaper to just not have sidewalks and just make the road flat? Like, do we need sidewalks?
Like an apron,
Well, I don't know what it's called, but,
like just a piece of hot top that leans back towards the road. And we've discussed that, and I'm hoping, like that section on 13, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna slant it back towards the road so the water doesn't go down. But it's very expensive because you gotta strip that all and put curbing. Curbing, when you lay it down, is $7 or $10 a foot. So if you've got 500 feet of curbing, it adds up, and that's not counting what you place on top. And we were just talking about that last week. There's a section in front of McDonald's that the sidewalk is all collapsed. And this winter, our sidewalk machine and pickup and hit quite a few chunks out of it because it wasn't frozen, and we patched them to get by until we can get Karens to come in. But like I said, those sidewalks haven't gotten attention. I've been here for 20 years, and some of them haven't seen any attention in 20 years. So.
and that would have to come out of the road reserve, or the road fund?
That usually
the
came out of
260?
our operating budget when we did it,
Somewhere.
yeah.
So just to, oh, go ahead, sorry.
No, I was,
Okay, so just to help us with all the numbers and thinking of what's going
Yeah.
on, could you at some point provide us just a list of all these culverts you think need to be replaced, the sidewalks that are broken, just gives us an idea of what we're looking at and what we can plan for in the future?
Because the sidewalk, I'll give you an example, if you're gonna do, let's say 13th Avenue from Main Street to the top, I would dare say that even with us in-house preparing it and that, you're still gonna be at the 50,000 for sure. it's,
For just
because
one.
you have catch basins there, you have, you know what I mean, it's very, very, very expensive.
The sidewalk project,
Then you gotta match the driveways,
the sidewalk project in Senegal in 2015, replaced the sidewalk from the motel roughly, all the way to the church. That was, 160,000. We're talking not quite 2 miles, 2 miles maybe. It's a lot of money.
it's very expensive, and it's hard to keep on top of that because it's very time consuming. And, you know, it's,
Well, and I'm not judging when I'm
no,
asking,
no,
I just, I don't understand,
Yeah.
so, you know, I want to have the information.
but I can get you the information, you know, like, give you the bigger culverts. I mean, I can't go and mark down like every driveway one,
Well,
but
no,
the bigger ones that I'm planning on changing,
yeah.
I have some that I've already written an estimated cost, like what it would cost me for materials, our equipment. But the sidewalks, when I have a chance, I could go around and do that.
Yeah,
and
we don't
try
need
to
a
get
breakdown
hold
of what you think needs to be, you know, put into place, and you
Yeah.
need this many pieces of that. Just an idea of, there's a culvert here that's broken, there's a
Yes.
culvert there,
Yep.
you know what I mean? Just so we have a, kind of a list or an idea of what we're looking forward to for infrastructure.
It'll probably be a little bit before we, because right now we're cleaning and trying to prepare, but I can do that definitely for you. So it gives you you know, an idea of what we're looking at, and if you
Exactly.
wanna, if any of you guys wanna come out and see what I'm talking about, I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
Okay, now that I'm
And-
depressed there, do we have something fun to talk about?
We're spending too much money. So what about the sidewalks? Can you do something like that too here in the next few, you know, to give us some idea of what we're looking at? Because
A lot
it
of-
sounds like those two have been neglected for years.
Yes, because I've seen in the past that we've hot top streets, but we never touch the sidewalk because it's too expensive and too time consuming. So it's like, how do I say that? It's like painting a car and not fixing the dents or the rust, you know what I mean? And how I could explain it, you know, it's,
Sometimes if you look at the normal height of a sidewalk, and if it only looks like it's this tall, it's because there's been layers of new road surface put up against it, and there's only a little bit left.
and I'm sure that a lot of that, where it's like just wavy, that I can have Karens come in and smooth that off and roll it, but that's also with them, they're already booked. I talked to Patrick and they're already booking well into the season this year, they didn't even finish last year, so it's hard to,
Yep.
Do we have to have those sidewalks there? Can we just have?
some places I can eliminate it,
Yeah.
but what happens is that there's some of them that have granite that they put and that's cemented in there, or if I pull that out, you're gonna break the rope.
Well, what's on Route 1 can't be taken out.
No, that's
No, but I'm
cemented in
talking
there.
about like our regular streets in
Right.
town,
Yes.
we have sidewalks and,
Do we have granite on our side streets?
We have it on Pleasant, and we have it on, there's another one. A lot of, but like Upper 12th Avenue, I'll give you an example. Where that's due to be, not upper, but mid 12th, from Acadia to French, that's due to be hot top. If I have my way, I'm pulling that sidewalk off.
yeah,
Because it's short, nobody walks on it, and we're gonna put an apron with a white bar so people can stay on that side, you'll have 5 feet to walk, it'll be fine. And
Yeah,
then,
that was what I was getting at a while ago,
Yeah.
there, what,
there are places you can, but there's other places where you have water issues that you need that curbing in order to keep the water in the gutter line. Like 13th Avenue, I don't think we could take that out because the way the water comes down fast, it could overspill over the driveway berm and then go into somebody's house.
and you know, it could be 12th I was talking about, now that you say that. I don't know, when I walk my
Yeah.
dog, sometimes I go up those roads and,
And also like 12th, the lower 12 also, that could be taken out and just slanted down, but anything's possible. We've done it on Riverview, we took out that sidewalk there, we just put an apron, that was done quite a while back, we did that. And it seems to be fine, and it's a lot easier to clean because
yeah.
we can do it with a grader or pickup in the winter, we don't need to have the little sidewalk machine. So it cuts down time also.
11th Ave.
Yes. The only issue is the storm drains are right on the side of it.
Yeah, I know. All right. There's no is there any more action that we need to take on this evening? I don't think there's anything else.
I'm good.
Okay,
That's it, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome to stick around.
These days are long, okay?
I've been here for a while.
It's only 8:20. I will put some money in.
Time stands still when we're here.
Yeah, I think so.
So are we adding money into this proposed to share
Well, no.
with the finance committee for their meeting, or?
Well, we could, I guess it'd be good to figure out how we're gonna tackle, we're gonna sit here and we're gonna talk about this budget. We're just gonna talk about it and take notes to act upon later, or are we gonna do any acting upon now? And so, whatever we wanna do is fine by me, just so we know. Or do we want our next meeting to be with the budget committee where we would say, well, we feel like this needs to be adjusted up or down, and we would do it then. And hopefully the finance committee would be on board, or they wouldn't be on board, whatever, we could recommend at that time, make adjustments and do it then. What are your thoughts?
I think for when we meet with the budget committee, we should have that $100,000 in there already, because I think that that's something we're all agreeing on. As far as the increase to the road reserve, I think we should just keep a note of that, leave it as it is now, and then once we've today gone over that full number, we can bring that up with the budget committee saying, hey, we've got this number here as a final number, what do you think about putting a little bit towards that road reserve?
Yep.
If we see
The
that.
only thing is, I kinda like to put these large capital outlay projects in the reserve account rather than at department expense,
Well, that's what I'm saying there, the $100,000 would be in the capital.
in the capital.
I'm just saying the road reserve, like we talked about, maybe increasing that a little bit apart from that
Apart from
100,000.
that, okay.
But I'm saying let's not put that reserve increase in right now, let's wait till the end, and if we see we have some money to put in there, we will. But yeah, the $100,000, that's separate there, we'll put that in.
And again, part of that, I think, just to recap why we moved that way, we wanted to be able to use those funds from one year to the next.
Right.
But when you put a big cost item like that in the budget one time, the next year, when you go back and you look at your budget, it looks like, we dropped the budget $100,000, or, we went up $100,000. And it's not really reflective of the operation side of the budget. It's more spikes and anomalies that happen that would be like, well, look, this year, we're $100,000 less than last year. So, why? So when you put it in a reserve account as a capital outlay, it provides a little bit more stability to the department's operating budget as a whole.
that's really what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It just makes, the departments appear stable,
Yeah,
when we have to just draw from the reserve account. Okay, all right, let's keep going.
all right, so I'll just go through, you guys wanna talk about revenue? Revenue, still no updated revenue sharing figure. The last figure was March 2026. We haven't seen a new figure updated yet. So we're thinking that we're probably gonna end up the same as last year. Any other questions on revenue? If not, I'll move on. You have your summary. I gave you one summary page by itself. You probably wanted, that's a good one. The one that's in your pack there is not,
Slightly off.
it's off a little bit. We had already compiled this packet, and then we figured out there was something that was off, that wasn't tracking right, so we updated the summary sheet. Town admin, Department 110. Any discussion on that?
So you've included the savings that we did on the phone system?
Yes. Yep.
Wait, I'm out of order here.
Are you?
Department 110? Is that what you just said?
Yep.
Yeah, one of the first ones.
You're right, I don't have it.
Good.
Yeah, you're right. I have it in the digital file you sent, but it's not in the packet.
Oh, I don't have one, Department 100. so apologies for that. Department 110, if you
I was personally all set with that one
Yeah.
when I went over it.
Last year's budget was 495, 138. This year's budget is 507, 761. And the bulk of that is related to COLA. It's a $12,000 increase. The bulk of that is the COLA and the health benefits. We have an employee that's come on that has full family benefits that we didn't have before, so it's increased our line. And I'll get you that, apologies for that. The governing body, do you have that one?
100, yep.
Okay. So, bottom line there, last year's budget was 57,625. This year is at 59,225. The increase of that was mostly the audit was up a little bit, and the public officials liability insurance is what's driving that. So it's up $1,600. There's a whole, are they in there somewhere, or are they just not there at all, Matt?
I checked, I didn't see them in there.
Okay. Department, the next budget would be GA, that would be 120. It's same budget, $23,091, unchanged from last year. Municipal building, Department 130. It's a $20,000 decrease there from last year, $20,370. So we were at $76,970. We're down to $56,600. Most of that is related to us reallocating some of the software charges and the managed services to the other departments. You can see that in minor software and equipment at $18,270. So some of the departments have increased those costs, and we've reduced it out of the municipal budget. We also highlighted in yellow there is the new cost for telephone, because we were able to find some savings on fax lines that we're working on right now. That'll be in place before this budget is completed. Any questions on municipal building expense? No? Good. Safety complex, Department 135. There's an increase of $2,500 there. The last year's budget was $41,269 to $43,769. And most of that is attributed just to heating oil. That went up $3,500. Electricity went up $500 because of the rate, electric rates went up.
Okay.
Elections, there's a reduction there of $3,876. That's because we don't have, we didn't have to double up on our town meeting this year like we did last year because of COVID. We had to postpone our town meeting. So salaries and wages was just almost $3,000 in savings there. And then some of the benefits that track that as well. We were able to reduce our general supplies a little bit down to by $700 to $500. Any questions on that?
Good.
Okay. Development codes and assessing, Department 200. So what we did here is different, is we some of the highlights are that, you know, we are going to be contracting with Northern Maine Development Commission for CDBG services, or grant writing services. That's at a cost of $25,000 a year. We are going to be bringing in a person to work in that department with me. But we're also going to use that person to work at Public Works. This department is going to bill Public Works $16,000. That's why you see that $16,000 in parentheses as a reduction on that labor cost. So in the net of Development Codes and Assessing Department 200 is a $28,000, $28,128 decrease in that department. It also increases our property mapping costs and updates. Then we went to digital maps, and so we brought that line up from 4,000, basically the last line in the budget, up from 4,000 to $4,900. That contract has been signed, tax maps, our old tax maps have been sent away, and they're gonna get started on that work. Any questions on that department? Oh, Marie?
Basically, and I get the whole, like, difficulty in taking things out and having to put them back the following year. I know the ups and downs are making life tough, but the health insurance for this department, you've cut an employee out, but the health insurance is still the same, and I'm just wondering if that could be cut in half? Like, what am I not getting?
Well, if we bring in a code enforcement officer, and we bring in that person to work there, you have 2 family plans that you have to pay for. The code enforcement officers, there's salaries in here too, Barbara. Right, so you see, economic development, that position, and also CEO. So if we recruit somebody and they come in and they have a family that they're entitled to their benefits for themselves and also for the proportion of the town's share of the family plan. So we have to budget that in there.
I was looking at the 38,220 and it's twice, and I didn't realize that was, I thought, okay, I get it.
Okay.
Yeah, I missed that second line of wages.
Any other questions on this department? Okay.
Questions,
Oh,
question.
sure.
Possible that the CEO would only be a part-time position instead of a full-time?
I think it's
Because
gonna
it
be hard.
used to be a part-time position. It was
Well,
never
you-
35.
You had a part-time position with somebody who, this was their backbone of several jobs that they had,
Mhm.
the person had. This was the biggest job,
Right,
and then they had all the other towns, and the person was able to make a full-time job out of that,
right.
right? I don't know that we're gonna be able to have, recruit somebody as a part-time CEO, get them trained and certified.
Because I was only looking at, it would have been a cost savings to the health insurance too, and any
Yeah.
other benefits they'd be entitled to.
No, and I don't disagree with you, I just think that it's going to be
Difficult, okay.
difficult to do that, to recruit. We're not getting a lot of applications right now, unfortunately, so, part-time, I think it's even worse.
Okay, thank you.
I'll wait for
Yeah,
Jason.
let's wait for Jason.
Go ahead.
So we have travel and training for CEO, St. Agatha Lakers, or whatever, but like travel and training, community development director, does that include the CEO?
Yes,
Why do we need $7,000 there
well,
if we don't have a community development director anymore?
I think that your community development director, there's still gonna be some travel associated with the work that needs to happen with that department. So if I'm working as CEO, as in this department, or whoever's working there, we'll be booking our travel there,
Okay,
not in the admin budget.
okay.
Ambulance department, the bottom line is an increase of $8,759. Last year's budget was $694,914. This year's is $703,763. Some of that is salaries and wages, health insurance, and benefits. It's pretty much most of where that increase comes from. There's also, like I said earlier, there's an increase in the software and the computer, the cost that we moved out of the town, the admin budget for the managed services is there. There's also savings in phone as well, of about $800. Questions on ambulance?
Nope.
Police department, so we've updated that we have a new contract with the police department, that was ratified by you folks last week. And we plugged in those numbers today. So you can see the increase, is actually, the salaries and wages is about 2,800 less than last year. That's because we don't have a full-time clerk, our secretary there, and we have 2 officers that are not, we have Ryan is leaving, and Luke is going to temporary reserve. And so under the new salary scale, somebody coming in, a new recruit would be at 0 to 1 year, so we factored in that. The savings in the utilities from the phone fax line that we found there was $700. Because we're getting a new police cruiser, we reduced the repair maintenance line by, that's $1,000 there. So the overall increase to PD is about $7,696 compared to last year. Questions?
No, we're good.
Moving on to Department 320, the fire department. Pretty much, there was an increase of $4,435. We did issue COLAs to all the employees of the fire department, so there's $1,170 associated with that. Increase in electricity, decrease in telephone. They took on some of these computer software costs. That's it. Any questions on that? None?
It's nice to see our telephone costs here really getting adjusted in the right manner we've been looking at that for a few years now.
Yep. EMA, Department 325, is flat funded from last year, $8,598. Any questions on that? Not?
Nope.
Library, there's a decrease of $925 there. The proposed budget is $106,445 as compared to $107,370. Discussion on that?
I'll buy you my time.
Okay.
So we're all set?
Yes.
All right. We'll,
Public
Okay.
Works, 500, moving on, if we're going to do that.
Yeah.
We've talked about the new one, we've been talking about Public Works, so we all set? Yeah, okay.
I think so.
Parks and Recreation, we submitted to you, Sam gave us some nice details, community gym, there's some of this with the Finance Committee had asked for, so we gave you a detail on that. And also some breakdown of revenues and activities and stuff like that, and all of the different facilities that they maintain. So it's pretty lengthy documents of what they do there. So the rec department budget is $12,622 up from last year. Last year was $432 to $808, to this year's $445, $430, and $4,721 of that is related to salaries and wages with COLA. We did increase electricity because of the rates. I think we were underfunding a little bit. Heating fuel went up. Software computing went up. That's it. Any questions on rec department? Or
The community gym breakdown that has wages in it, what's that all about?
that's the person that works, the part-time person that comes in and does cleaning and stuff.
And that's a person beyond
Yes,
our regular employees?
yes. it's more of like it's not like an employee from the rec department, it's somebody that just goes there to do some cleaning.
Okay. I have to think about that, because I think I'm gonna have some questions. I guess like, the community gym's being run as a separate entity and it has a payroll of its own. That's not included on our rec payroll. And who does that payroll, and like, are they covered by workers' comp and all that? But that's not even,
They're an employee, but they're not, the community gym is a, separate from the rec department, it's an enterprise fund, so it's operated as an enterprise business. True that the rec department employees oversee the community gym.
so we have that set up as a separate fund in our accounting system. Why would we not have that under rec department and have a $50,000 profit, $50,000 that's sitting there, buying the rec a tractor, instead of having to raise money for that? Like, I don't,
That's not how the gym was set up, it was set up to be standalone.
okay, but couldn't we visit that somehow, or like, I guess, I mean, we have employees taking care of the gym. We have a department that oversees the gym that needs a tractor, and we have $50,000 sitting here doing nothing. And yes, I get it, you know, if they wanna buy gym equipment or whatever, but I don't know, I guess it's just, doesn't make sense to me. I know, like, at the time, like, if there was, I mean, it started with $5,000, so it wouldn't make sense, but now, if we're up to this much money, like, can we legally transfer that over, or?
Well, yeah, so that's kind of my two-part question. So part one, I can totally understand why the community gym is on its own. We're always looking at Public Works and the rec department and saying, well, we have this big number, we have no idea what they're doing. And this kind of gives us, because it's taking revenue, it kind of shows us all of the revenue and expenses and keeps it totally separate. On the other hand, what are the legalities of going to the taxpayers and saying, hey, there's $51,000 in it, let's not steal all of it, because if we do need equipment that breaks down, but, you know, can we transfer $20,000 into the rec budget or the rec capital reserve or whatnot to get a tractor?
Could we check if that's legal?
You can check.
Cause, you know,
Well, it's not hard to see that this was started with that right idea in mind, but, you know, as an ending balance, if you look back 4 or 5 years, you started with 5,000, and now we're talking, you know, $52,000 in there, and it's just sitting there, so, you know, when we see figures like that, all of a sudden, people find all kinds of expenses. You know, so, yeah, I don't see why we can't consider at least a percentage of this to be moved to the Rex reserve accounts.
We would have to take a look at the
Yep.
enabling language of the fitness center to see how it was created and what the restrictions are on that. I think that if we look at, we'd have to look in the audit to see how if they got that classified as restricted, a restricted fund. I'm not sure you could take that money,
yeah,
just
I
like,
mean,
just like the pollution control money,
if it's
and
restricted,
bring
I
it,
get it,
and bring it into the
but,
town municipal budget. This is
Right.
not necessarily municipal budget.
if the original fund was restricted, it doesn't necessarily mean that the additional revenues are restricted. So if you got 30,000 to start it, it doesn't mean the other 20 are necessarily restricted. It just depends on the language, like you say, of the, I mean, we might be able to at least get 20,000 out of there.
We'd have to talk to our auditors, see what they think about it, and see how they've got it classified, that way, so I'm not sure. It's been considered classified that way for quite some time now, so we need to look at it.
Well, for sure, with the idea that there's revenues coming in into this account, that it probably needs to be looked at in its own manner is what I'm getting at.
Because, I mean, we also have to consider, again, like I said, not to wipe it all out.
Sure.
Replacement gym equipment is expensive. You're not looking at your everyday household stuff. You're looking at a, $6,000-7,000 treadmill to replace one that's there now. And don't quote me on those numbers, but I wouldn't want to wipe it out completely, but at least,
I mean, he's saying it's probably a restricted fund, I mean, like, if it started at a certain balance,
Right, no, I
that balance
understand that
might be
part.
restricted anyway, so
Yeah. But there may be a restriction on
Only-
revenue as well,
there could be.
but it doesn't hurt to ask.
Yep.
Always trying to take money everywhere, huh? Hide your wallet.
Okay,
Anything else on the Parks and Recs?
It's not really a budget conversation, but I think that at some point, I don't know, you guys at future, I won't be around for this conversation, but, I mean, there might wanna be some little fees for outside organizations or people that, I don't know, to track it, cause you have to give this whole list to all the taxpayers when they see this budget there, you know? So,
what you're saying
I
for
know
some
what
of
happens
these,
is-
some of these activities?
well, yeah, like, I see they do stuff for, like, I'm not gonna say the group, but there's one person in particular that's been really hounding me a lot about the rec department, and I'm like, oh my god, they're working for your group free, so what are you, like, I saw that and I'm like, okay, so I messaged right away and I'm like, did you realize that they are doing this for this group and it's on, in that budget, like, I don't know how to
The rec-
address
the rec
that,
department-
cause this comes up all the time and it's,
Fills a lot of needs
yeah,
community-wide.
yeah,
It's not just games and activities and sports. It's facilities, it's support to other departments, support to the chamber, top of main trade show, Katie Festival, a lot of heavy lifting. For those, Public Works helps too, but a lot of heavy lifting is done by the rec department.
I think the rec department is that friend of ours that gets, not abused, but
yeah,
taken advantage of.
yeah. Well, and
Well, I
it's
mean-
good, maybe not a fee is not the answer, but I don't know how to,
I don't necessarily think it's being taken advantage of, I just think it's not recognizing the contribution they make
Right.
yeah,
to the community,
yeah,
right? Because, all of these organizations are working on shoestring budgets
Yeah.
anyway.
Right.
And to ask them to all of a sudden start paying fees, are they gonna continue to do those things that support our community?
Right.
So I think that, they're one of those, I really think they're a real big asset to the community because of the contribution that they make and the support that they do for all of the different things that happen in town.
Yeah, I think the rec is a huge asset to the town with everything they do, and I know they did, we asked them last year to look at the prices of their events and summer camps and that, and they did review their price structure, so, without hurting the public, they did look at that.
yeah, and I guess fees wasn't really what I was
No, I know what you're saying.
getting at, like, I just don't know how to, like, this budget, this is the third, this is basically the third board that I go through this budget with, because the board switched before the other last year, and the question always comes up, park recs, maintenance, why is it all lumped together, and it's always the contentious budget that somehow,
Mhm.
I don't know if we could,
But, I like to think of the daycare, the day camp operation that they
Yeah.
run under normal circumstances. That's basically allows working parents, that summer vacation there, that they have to find daycare and stuff for those young kids there, that helps those working parents, because
Yeah.
that's the bridge for school vacation, and their kids are fed, and, we get funds from the state, it's all paid for, like, there's a really great, robust program there, and it supports the community, and the young parents too.
Yeah.
You can't put a price tag on that. So the value of that, you can't quantify that. You can put a price tag on the budget as far as what it looks like as an expense, but but the value is there, I think, and it's easy to lose sight of that.
Yeah,
There are certainly some items out here that I would question at some point in the future. And I don't know if this is an active list, or if this is just stuff that we've done at some point in the past, but there's some items in here that certainly should be questioned. All right, I'm all set with that for now.
All right, next department is our insurances, Department 700, really, $533 increase there. So we did see an increase in our P&C, but we also saw a decrease in our workers' comp because our lottery is really gone down. So that's good. Any questions on that? If not, intergovernmental. So our intergovernmental budget has gone up by $38,076. $25,941 is for the county tax. Increased $3,000 to the streetlight account, and that was because I felt that, we needed to add a little bit more cost for having to put lights back up when the main utility takes them down, if they replace poles and stuff. We did reduce the chamber's appropriation by $42.35 from last year, but we added the difference into the codes budget for community and business development, sort of like if we wanted to pay for, if we needed their help for some project or whatever, we would pay them from there instead.
I'm still waiting for that list as well from the chamber.
Yeah, I'll remind Sharon, we'll have it before our next budget meeting. We budgeted $13,200 for the Canadian Festival, we had not done it the year before, so the increase overall is $38,076. Any questions on intergovernmental? Social services budget is a decrease of $2,000, and that could be basically a $2,000 reduction in the historical society. Last year they were at 11,000. This year the request was 9. Questions on social services? Municipal debt is unchanged over last year, $496,204. Any questions? No. Pollution control. Their budget is up $38,694. Of that, because of the COLAs, it increases $3,369. The benefits that track that. Utilities, heating fuel went up, obviously, to $6,500 for that, between that and the electricity increase. Looks like those last, some of the last columns didn't add up correctly. No, they're good. And then the sewer debt went up from last year, $28,247. That's because the timing of the note, the last loan that we incurred. Most of our loans, we pay the principal in the spring, or the principal in the interest in the spring and the principal in the fall, or vice versa. So you don't pay the all one payment, and that's why it wasn't budgeted in last year, but it is this year. Any questions on pollution control? I do want to say one thing about the pollution control. I know that there was some discussion at the finance committee about maybe potentially taking some money out of their reserve or their general fund, which is somewhere right around $900,000. I'd be hard pressed to recommend that we don't do that. Pollution control, that not necessarily just a capital reserve account, that's their operating fund. So you know that we budget revenues and we project consumption. Those projection is a projection. You're not always, we use the historical. It depends how much the mill uses for water and stuff like that, can vary from year to year. So we might be short on revenue projections one year, we might be great on another year. But there are some very, very expensive items over there that we need to, if we fail, something fails, it's expensive. We have a CSO structure near the pump station that's gonna need to get fixed. That's the one that froze up this year. There's a whole catch basin that's tipping over, that needs to be addressed. And then we had, as part of the sewer construction project that we have going on there as we're wrapping up, we were able to do some patchwork to stabilize the riverbank where our pipe goes to the river. There's an outfall pipe, that goes down, and our pipe goes into the river to an area where the water can have adequate mixing, where there's flow. The December 12, 2019 ice jam that happened on the river let go and it jammed up and it created that big pack of ice, that ice pack that from Frenchville all the way to Van Buren. When that left, it took out a lot of the riverbank at Public Works, and where that pipe comes out, it's all gravel there, it's just fine gravel, so the bank doesn't hold itself very well. We've been losing ground to the river every year, and Emera Maine had done some work where their power line crosses the river. They did a stabilization project there 2 years ago. Long story short, there's somewhat of an eddy because our property protrudes beyond Emera's property that's behind Public Works, and that's just prone to getting eroded when there's high ice flows or high spring flows. We were lucky this year. So DEP told us last year, we're gonna have to fix that, and we discovered we had an issue, the pipe had been undermined on the riverbank, so as part of the sewer project, we went in and we fixed it up. We put in some big riprap, but we know that that's a project that's gonna come in the next 1 to 5 years. We're gonna have to do something there, and that's $400,000 or $500,000 project, potentially. So what do? Either we have the money to pay for it, or we have to go out and borrow. And I don't wanna borrow any more money for the sewer department, unless we have to, right? So, and it's not like it's a really, really important to have a good fund balance down there, and I would be strongly recommending that we don't do that. So anyway, any questions on Department 960? Motion control.
Item 60 there, how many road vehicles do they actually work with? We're not funding anything there, and I don't know how many, if they have any, other than one vehicle, if they've got anything else, but we don't seem to be thinking that we need to put any money aside there.
They have 2 pickups and they have a dump truck that they use to haul their sludge
Yeah.
to the storage shed in Aspen. So there's not a lot of vehicles there.
So we don't need to be too concerned about that then?
No, they rely on Public Works for
Yep.
payloaders and stuff like that.
Yep.
So one department's helping out the other.
No, well, if that's the way they're operating,
Yep.
we don't need to worry about it then. Okay.
I have just
Oh, yep.
I know, we did talk about that in the finance committee meeting, and just a comment, I don't think, you only set the user fees, after town meeting, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, so I won't be here anyway, but, I would hope that, I would hate to see an increase. I would hate to be sitting here and say, okay, I'm gonna approve this increased budget, and then turn around and find out user fees went up, because I get not using the 900,000, but, they just went up last year,
I'm pretty sure that we can be stable in our user fees this year, I don't necessarily think that you need to take money out of the reserve account to do that, out of their fund to do that.
okay,
You know,
but just
it-
for
it's
the
something
record.
It's something that when we, how would I say that, Carol, correct me if I'm wrong, when we set the user fees, the consumption and all that, if we fall short on what we think we're gonna bring in, it's gonna automatically draw that from the operating account. And it'll increase and reduce that fund balance over there,
Okay,
all by itself. It's not something that we have to actually make a transaction, like an accounting transaction for, unless we do it, but I don't see that as really necessary to do that.
okay, like I said, I don't wanna be voting yes on a budget that's going up if it means bringing fees up, because then I would be voting no, and we'd have to figure it out.
Then we're gonna shut off your sewer,
Yeah, that's okay.
we'll bring you a porta potty.
I know where there's a pool next door, I can dump some stuff in.
Holy.
I'll Doug's never home, the doors, I'll just let myself in when I let the cat in and I'll, use his bathroom. He'll never know. Doug will pay the sewer fee.
Yeah, all right, pollution control, next.
So the last one we have is capital purchase and reserves. I don't know if you wanna have any more discussion there. So last year, so I'll go through this one, there's not a lot of lines here. The rec department put in a request to replace their mowing machine, that has the loom, the front mower, and the snow blower. It's $42,500 request there. There's a Public Works Reserve, $25,000. There's, last year we had $200,000 to rebuild the grader. That, we don't obviously have that this year. And I believe the grader is gone there. I believe it was shipped out to get fixed.
Okay.
So that's work ongoing. Fire department, $25,000, same as last year. Capital repairs, for the fire truck reserve, sorry. Capital repairs to fire trucks, $40,000, same as last year. Generator transfer switch, we're not funding that this year because we have it. Moving down, we have the recreation facility reserve, tennis courts at the lake, $5,000. We've been putting money in there for, this would be the third year, I believe, that we do that.
So we actually have 15,000 in there?
Let me see if that's in here. I'm not sure if I don't see it on the list down below. It's either 10 or 15 that we have there. Kevin's road project reserve, Public Works, 264, is the same as last year. We have our NDOT sidewalk project matched, $48,000. We're gonna need to do that one more time next year. Gerald's safety complex roof replacement project, $55,000. We did 50 last year, we're doing 55 this year. Those are, that'll be gone, the cost that'll be gone next year. So, long story short, last year we funded capital reserves at $697,550. This year we're at $505, with a reduction, which is about $192,550 less than last year. Any questions on that?
Go ahead, Lori. Sorry. I always ask
Not
to
even on Zoom and I'm still on delay.
I always wanted to sit further back from you guys, because, for that reason.
I was not here, I understand it's my problem. I missed the rec department's discussion about the tractor. And for me, I'm just having a hard time to swallow that unless theirs is really broken, if Public Works is suffering so much. So I'm just wondering if someone could fill me in. Like, is their tractor dead, or are we?
I think their tractor is getting to the point that they're putting a lot of money into it, in the way Sam describes it. I mean, we could, obviously, I could have Sam write up a paragraph or two for you.
I know the finance committee questioned it too, the cost of it, and whether something cheaper could be bought, or whether the school's tractor even gets used if the rec's doing that work. So is that gonna be part of your discussion with them?
Well, I'll talk about it with Sam.
Because I mean, if they have a big one that's really not getting used, then maybe, I don't know.
Maybe they would give it to us, is that
Well,
what you're saying?
it's all taxpayer money, it's all the same money. And if we're mowing their fields, I mean,
We'll use their tractor, but, and the rec will supply the labor.
We have a
Well,
lot,
yeah, I mean,
we have
I
a
don't
lot,
know, it's
a
just
lot of
like-
ground that we cover with those machines.
and I'm sure
so-
they probably use theirs, and maybe we can get the money from the gym, I don't know, it's just, I know the finance committee questioned it, a couple people, I think, did, and so, yeah, maybe,
I don't remember how old that tractor is.
No, I'll have Sam
I don't remember that.
type something up for you guys.
Okay.
There was a thought that he might be able to come here tonight here, but we guy talked to him a little bit about it, and you know, with all this detail and stuff, and he asked, and I know that he had something going on, and he said he might try to do
when
it.
he
but-
presented though, the finance committee was here,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Alright,
I mean, it's not the first year that he asks. you know.
no, I know, last
Yeah.
year we talked about it too, and,
Okay,
Okay,
You know,
what else?
that's all I have.
Anybody else have anything? Well, then I would, look for a motion to
So-
adjourn. Well,
I guess, just kind of recap, I don't think that the only thing that want some clarification on is a little bit of more story on the mower. Follow up with Kevin on the culvert. What else, is there anything else?
The
that-
gym, the
The
gym
gym.
money, can we use it?
And the gym, those three things.
Do we need $11,000 in the tent money? Could we cut that in half and throw some on the tractor? I mean, I'm not asking for an answer tonight,
No.
I'm just throwing like 11,000 for tent, I don't know, I'm just,
Didn't we not repair, but replace some of those tents not too long ago?
We did a lot of repairs to the tents last year.
so that
And the
reserve,
tent,
that
see, the
reserve.
tent thing is the revenue from the tents
Mm.
was used to go back in the tents. That was the thinking back then. Whatever's driving its own revenue will take care of itself. And that's how this was set up.
Yeah,
You know, let that take care of itself.
yeah,
So is the revenue at least balancing off the expense? We don't know.
On tents,
Yeah.
well, I mean, we really closed in our circle, that coverage area. Because, I mean, I just,
Oh, yeah,
I
we're
know-
running all the way to Eagle Lake.
I- and some, and I know it was further than that, and I know that, you know, there's no way, you know, paying staff that much travel and expenses that we were losing money with that. And it might have looked like, well, they're working anyway, so, but I think that I was, you know. So I was glad that the board, previous boards acted to kind of close that in, and I know that we don't generate as much revenue, but we're not, you know, putting miles on our vehicles and gas and, you know. One of my biggest concerns was staff getting hurt, setting up a tent in Ashland or something, or whatever. And it'd be a workers' comp case, and then hit our mod rate, increase our insurance for all departments. That was one of my biggest concerns, you know. So we really wanted to focus more on here.
I'm sure when it's all said and done, we're probably losing money there.
as far as the budget goes, part of our budget discussion should be, I think, the auditor's suggestion on the general fund. I don't know how we would get there. You know, 1.8 is good, and I think, you know, there was,
It's not even a budget discussion, Lori, it's really, all that is an article in the warrant that says, shall the voters of the town, we need to get like a warrant language that describes the fund and its restrictions, okay? And how it would work, for what purpose, and how we would be able to go into it. Whether or not the article would be written to say that the board would have the authority to go into that fund if there was a sudden drop in
but
the
where's the
tax
money gonna,
assessment.
where's the money gonna come from?
How are we
To
gonna
put
fund
in the
it?
fund?
So
Are
what
we
they
gonna
basically
fund
said
it?
is we could take a chunk of that 1.8 million and appropriate it into a assessment stabilization fund. Call it whatever, I'm not saying it's gonna be named that if we were to do it. So it's not a transaction in this budget.
Well, it's probably not a transaction in this budget, but you have to think that, you know, the savings account, the undesignated fund took a big hit,
Mm.
right? And past years, before even your time, there's record of, you know, money being taken out of there to reduce the mill rate. And then, you know, another year, reduce the mill rate, and like, we haven't done any of that, but that has to be built up somehow. And so, at least, you know, we have to understand that if we're not funding that here in this budget, somebody has to be aware of it going forward. You know, like,
I think you can.
we're running you very tight, so you're not gonna have much money to roll over.
No, and I think that Carol and I, we talked about that today, that we probably would be recommending to the board that we would want to take $500,000 of that 1.8 and figure out, you know, with the attorney, what the article language would be, and take that money for a serious, what would be a serious, like, emergency fund if we were to lose some significant value from the mill. You know, they're our largest taxpayer, and so this, mill towns do this. And so, and I think it's important, that would shelter that money from boards wanting to say, well, our undesignated fund is, you know, let's just go into that a little bit, it keeps growing every year. Well, that's okay if it keeps growing every year, but if you're not setting aside for that catastrophe, if it were ever to happen, it might not be there. So you can still do that, make transfers out of the undesignated if it grows, and put it into that stabilization fund. Or you could actually fund the stabilization fund through collecting in taxes if you had to really get drastic there. I don't think we need to do that, but I do think we need to protect the town in the future. And I talked to, you know, with our auditor about this before, and I've talked to other towns, you know, Bucksport lost their mill, gone. And I believe because they had funded a fund like that, they weathered that storm without having to increase taxes, I believe, or not much. Imagine that. So, you know, and now they're getting a new like $100 million aquaculture facility there. It's gonna replace some of that lost revenue, but I think that, can you imagine if something would happen down there, we would lose 38% of our tax base? That's pain. And so, Ron wasn't talking about it in that, or in the auditor in that sense, he was more thinking about if they were to have some financial hardships and be late in paying their taxes, that we would be having to turn around and borrow money to operate. It doesn't really, all of our money, even though we have it parked in different accounts for different purposes, all these reserve accounts, it sits in one checking account, one operating account. And that, all those reserve accounts help us cash flow. So we could take $500,000 and put it into that, you know, stabilization. We have all these other reserve accounts. They do help us cash flow. You know, it's not like we're taking money out of them, cash flow, but in the short term, it helps us to not have to take out tax anticipation notes.
So I get it, I just, there are guidelines for the undesignated fund, and it's at 1.8, I don't know what the guideline is at that level right now, if we're supposed to be acting to fund some of that.
Well, I
So
mean,
that's why I say, like, it is kind of a budget discussion, because we have to know or look at that and say,
well, I think we had prior discussion on our fund balance policy was 90 days cash, and we were projecting about $900,000 per month. It's $2.7 million, so we're about $900,000 short of our target
right,
for that cushion right now. So,
and we're gonna transfer 5 out.
yeah,
That doesn't affect the cash flow too much.
it
It won't, but,
you know,
okay, I mean, it's just,
No, but I think it's prudent on our part that we do it that way. I mean, it should, you know, I mean, companies the size of Twin Rivers today, I mean, they can change hands so quickly, and things can change, the markets can change so quickly. I mean, that mill was so close to shutting down here 8-10 years ago that it could have so easily happened. And, you know, it's just prudent on our part that we do put some capital reserves aside for a stabilization fund. It just makes sense.
I mean, the 2.2 million is basically what we collect in taxes from them. That doesn't include we have about $900,000 in Betty revenue. A lot of that's the mill, there's other companies as well too, you know, but just to say that, you know, for 1 year, it would be nice to have the year's cushion there, you know, and spread out that disaster should it happen.
So to Lori's point then, I mean, how do we move forward from here?
Oh, I don't think you can put something in the budget this year. I mean, you don't, that doesn't look like there's an appetite to increase taxes, right? So, we're working hard to try to put forth a budget that is less than or equal to what we have now, okay? I think that the first step, there's gonna be steps to this process, and the first step would be to take maybe $500,000 out of the undesignated fund and just earmark that to a stabilization fund. And it's not something that's, it's not a cost in this budget, it's just an accounting action, but it's the taxpayers' money, you need their authorization to do that.
But the rest of this board that will be here for the next budget has to have this in their mind that, like, we can't keep, like, right, today, this means we're kicking the can down the road, right? Because we don't wanna raise taxes, but if it keeps getting kicked,
Listen, I'm,
it's not gonna be good, because then, 3-4 years from now, you're gonna be sitting here with a totally new board, and taxes are gonna be going up, and it's,
I'm optimistic that revenue sharing will eventually get back to 5%. And I'm hoping that the revenues from the school, like the state education revenues, are gonna be more than they were, so that maybe we could see a reduction over there. But if the revenue sharing numbers can continue to go up to get to 5%, it would be a game changer, I think, for us. I mean, it would be the difference of a few $100,000 a year, and that would make the world of a difference for us here. So if we could get to that point, it's gonna be better.
So for future budgets here, this item, stabilization fund, will become a line item?
Well, it depends if the board wants to fund it, and the future board wants to fund
Well,
it.
I understand, but all of a sudden here, we're 8, 10, 12 months down the road. I mean,
Well,
you know,
we're working on the departments that we have, and I don't see a lot of interest in creating new line items, that are gonna increase the taxes, so.
I think step one is to just start the account and then worry about funding it once we can. get
and
it.
I'm okay with that, because then that way it gets addressed every year.
Right.
They'll see it and say, okay, what was this set up for, and what's it doing, and
Right.
we put more money into it.
I think that we should try to figure out what the target number would be and try to set a policy on it, and hopefully that is a guidance to the future boards, and that this year we weren't able to put in for, allocate into the budget an amount of money for that, but I think that, future, we would definitely do it through either transactions from the undesignated or budgeting it in. There's just two ways to do it. If you run really, really tight budgets, you're not gonna have an opportunity to grow your undesignated fund, so.
well, and that's what's happening right now, like, we're running you guys really tight, and last year it was tight, and you still managed to roll some over, so hopefully this year it happens again, but we'll have Jason donate his Pepsi cans.
Okay, all right.
So we don't have another meeting date, I think the next time would be, the finance committee has to meet on their own, and then we'll meet with them.
I thought we had a meeting set up for May 3.
Did we?
That's a regular meeting, I believe.
Oh, you mean,
Yeah.
budget meeting?
Liquor license.
Yeah, we have the the board meeting already set, I'm talking about budget.
Budget, okay, sorry, yeah, we don't. I don't have anything down.
So I think we'll have to wait on them to see when
The finance
they
committee?
get their work done, and then we'll just kind of poll each other and find out when we wanna meet as a.
I think Chris was hopeful that the school meeting would happen, but if that doesn't look like it's gonna happen, I mean, even if it happens, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't foresee a lot changing in the budget.
The school?
The schools or
Or
the
ours.
towns, like, even if you guys come out of that meeting and say, okay, well, they'll start covering this, or like, it's, to me, it's only work for to understand, like, what the crossover is. I don't know that it's gonna really change a lot, so maybe if that meeting doesn't happen
Oh, we'll make something happen.
soon, okay.
Yeah.
Cause that would be the one thing holding everything up right now.
You know, I think we could have a one and a half hour meeting there and cover the bases and take some notes and,
As long as we're still on schedule.
well, it's coming. We're gonna be into May here pretty soon, so I
Mhm.
think that it would be nice if we could have one more joint meeting with the finance committee and get it done, be done. So that way we can start working on the warrant and getting all the final numbers put into the warrant, start planning for the annual town meeting, but do you think that we can do it in one more meeting with them? Just like we did?
I think so. I mean, it depends what recommendations we come out with, but, it is what it is, right? We'll go through, as a finance committee, we'll vote on which recommendations that we wanna give to this board, and then, I mean, you guys will, I don't think that I'll vote unless they're short of a quorum, but
Anything else?